Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Medical Mindset Coach podcast. I am your host, Star Freudenberg, and I'm quite excited to sort of serve you today's episode because I'm going on the lines of, this is a little bit controversial. So let me preface you already and get you interested and piqued for what is about to await. Maybe I'm even overrating, I don't know. But it is quite controversial on the serious note is, we're talking about spirits, we're talking about the paranormal, and we're talking about a subject that I found out from my dear friend who I met a few years ago at Aerial Skills. That in the UK and obviously across the world as well, but definitely not in South Africa in the time that I was around, is that you can study psychology, become a postgraduate, and then specialize in a field of paranormal psychology. So I thought when I heard her say that, I was like, this is incredible. And more people need to know about it and also know it's not maybe just something in the movies, but something legitimate that people may study or find interesting, and more so you can actually make a career out of it. So, a real life Ghostbuster, so to speak. And I just thought it'd be quite a fascinating opportunity to bring her on and almost share her experiences because she's quite or raised to be quite a scientific-minded individual, who's very logical in her thoughts, her processes and understanding, and has obviously interviewed and met quite a few people who've encountered or experienced some very different experiences or unique experiences might be the better way to phrase it, and hopefully get her to share those stories. And always, like anything in life, you may dream or have a plan on how an interview may go or how anything may go. And sometimes when the actual event happens, the path seems to go ever so differently, and even so organically. And what has seemed to come out of this conversation was actually I ended up, would I say divulging or sharing, because it's not a secret. I do share my personal experiences with people. And maybe this is just a really wonderful opportunity for you to get to know me more in ways that I don't usually typically share unless someone reciprocates an experience, and then I can say, okay, yes, I understand what you're going through because I have been through X, Y, and Z. And obviously from today's episode that you're about to hear, it was almost a wonderful experience for me to sort of bring up memories that I was like, oh, yeah, that's why I believe this, or that's why I got into this, or this is why I am the way that I am, simply because of the experiences that have shaped me since I was a child. And obviously some very unique and interesting experiences that have happened to me, like near-death experiences or some very interesting scandals, from my mum. But you'll hear that later in the episode. So it is quite a long episode, but I'd like to say very engaging and interesting. So of course you can obviously listen to it, take a pause and come back to it at any other time. And if you have some experiences that you may want to share, or some experiences that I might have shared you might resonate with, etc., then yes, of course, please do share and communicate just like you always do, because I'm very open and excited to hearing about what people go through, outside of myself. But what was very, very interesting is that my microphone, I guess when I started to speak about my father, who has passed away when I was 17, the microphone just stopped. And in hindsight now, I'm like, maybe that means I wasn't supposed to say anything. But we sort of did. I just sort of thought, okay, we'll just carry on with the conversation and go with it. So if you do struggle to hear and understand me, maybe turn up your volume, or make sure you get earphones in or headphones in, to obviously help. But of course, the guest, Jennifer Louise, you can definitely distinctively hear her. So of course, like in anything in life, technical difficulties always seem to come into action and play. And this was something I didn't know how to adjust in the moment that we incurred the experience. So yes, so you'll definitely hear a shift in my voice speaking. So don't worry, it's not you, it's me. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you are fascinated. I hope your mind, I would even say, is challenged or broadened. And I think it's really, really important, because I think why I'm quite maybe at the level that I am, whether it's a big level or not, but compared to the average person who's coming into work with law of attraction, law of manifestation, power of intention, these kind of three main themes, is in my philosophy and belief system, you need to be open. And not just open to one or two things, just in general, your mind needs to be open. Your mind needs to be broadened. Your mind doesn't need to be closed off or shut down. Maybe you might not believe in it, but don't be closed off to it. Just go, yeah, okay, I understand that there are people out there, but it's not really my cup of tea. Because the more you shut down your mind or your belief systems, you almost are shutting off avenues or pathways, is an even better word, to welcoming or manifesting something into your life, in whatever way, shape, or form. And sort of my golden nugget today is just to maybe encourage you to think, okay, maybe you're not open to it, but don't shut yourself down to it, because if there are many, many, many people out there who are speaking about a similar experience that have no affiliations or connections to each other in whatsoever, that it's almost abnormal to know that people can share the same experience, there might be something to it. And maybe that all I can encourage is just to say, what if, maybe, I wonder how my life would be different if I thought differently. And it's all coming and boiling down to the power of your mindset, right? With my deep breathing. Anyway, so I invite you to enjoy. And again, just let me know if you have any interesting ideas, thoughts, or experiences, or even someone you know. And almost this is quite a personal podcast, because I do share a lot of personal detail, and just sort of almost encouraging vulnerability and authenticity of like-minded individuals to share their story. And I'm not afraid to share mine, even though it is not something easily shared. So yeah, anyway, that's all I have to say for today. So enjoy, and I'll catch up with you guys on the next episode. I've got quite a few people that I'm interviewing at the moment, so I'm not sure what I'll feel guided to share first, so I won't let you know. And I hope you have a great day, night, wherever you are in the world, and I'll catch up with you guys soon. Lots of love. Bye.
Well, I haven't studied it for a long time, so it's just an interest.
No, but this is literally what fascinates me. So I need to relay this. So in South Africa, I mean, I have to give you some context. Okay, so South Africa in my day are non-believers. They think like the esoteric, the spiritual is all like weird voodoo. I'm going to say voodoo. And sugar, honey, ice, and tea. And we have what we call witch doctors back at Musangomas, so which are African people. So obviously we're white people living in Africa, but it's not our home original place of of origin. And so when you're sort of a person who's interested in this kind of stuff, you're getting put into the category of witch doctors. And witch doctors started getting a really, really bad rep, because in the newspapers there'd often be articles published about sangomas, witch doctors, stealing babies and chopping them up into
For
pieces.
real?
No, this is legit practice, because they use the body parts to make medicine. Literally, like, I know this sounds crazy, but this is the truth. So they call it medicine, they call it muti in our country. So anyway, so there's this kind of bubble or negative attention that's been put onto the subject. So when you say like, oh, I'm into spiritual practice or, you know, psychic stuff or whatever, they'll be like, boom, and think of you, just have that association, and they just think of you as really, really strange.
Shame as well. It's very judgy and jumping to conclusions and all of that.
That's what I think. But so like my dad was basically from his youth was a non-believer, but what was I saying before I got really
talking about voodoo doctors and the fact that you get a bad rep for believe or even talking about paranormal stuff.
Okay, wait. This is very interesting. So my dad, okay, he was a very old father. He had me in his 50s. He said most of his life he was a non-believer in spirituality and ghosts and all that thing. And apparently on my parents' honeymoon, they went to Mexico and they were on this boat. And there was this, like, again, I'm going to say a witch doctor equivalent in Mexico, shaman healer.
On the boat?
Apparently on the side of the boat. And he was just shouting at my dad, like, oh. So he was obviously like, what the hell is this guy saying?
Yeah.
Very scared. And I mean, this is where we're going, but this is how the reality of this works. But basically, the guy said that my dad was a reincarnation of Louis XVII, Marie Antoinette's son.
Okay.
Everyone knows the French Revolution, Marie Antoinette, or the expression like let them eat cake, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that day, it obviously freaked him out. So he started, and he was a historian as well. So he started getting into research about all of this sort of history. And then he sort of got caught up in this, I'm going to say, conspiracy theory that when the French Revolution happened, the son of Marie Antoinette didn't actually get killed as history portrays it. But actually he ended up escaping and then went and escaped to Scotland and became a Lord Crawford. I know it's out of there. But then basically my dad started going on this conspiracy theory that he needs to uncover the truth about who he is and who he became just as a...
So did he believe this witch doctor then? Yeah. After not believing all of his life? Yeah, basically. Then when he turned 50 plus, someone shouted at him from the side of
I'm going to say, this is what's happened.
Maybe he needed this.
So, like, it really got him quite stimulated intellectually. Because my dad, like I said to you earlier, was a plastic surgeon. He was a very intelligent man. He could play instruments. He read a lot. Always like doing something to stimulate his brain. Very talented individual.
So this was something completely different that he's never looked into, I guess, before, and something exciting, whether he believed it or not.
Yeah, but this is what I was told when I was a child, and obviously growing up with it, I was exposed to it quite a bit. But his whole almost like a purpose he had, which he never ended up completing, was that he wanted to make sure that he could discover who that this Louis XVII was, get his bones and get them back to the royal French graveyard, so that his bones may rest with his family, which is quite cute in a way. And he wrote books about it. But basically what he kept doing was he kept going to psychics and clairvoyants to uncover more information. And then throughout his research and archaeology kind of discoveries, he would find like artifacts, and he would take it to these psychics and clairvoyants to, pick up energy from it. It's called psychometry, where you can touch the object and then you get visions and all of that.
Psychometry.
Yeah, it's very cool. I discovered that word recently. I was like, I see it in the movies. What the hell is that thing called? And yeah, basically then he used to, I'm going to say the word, play with spirits. He used to like try call upon them and do all that stuff. And I think...
Wow, so he really converted, basically.
Yeah.
Later on.
He had a shrine for Marie Antoinette as well.
Wow.
Like, he would dedicate, like, because apparently she loved white peace lilies. So he would always have them, like every new flowers, always light a candle, that kind of thing. So I think he always brought that energy in. And now, obviously, 100 years later, I realized I'm quite a sensitive individual myself, having experienced encounters, when I was young, but I didn't know about it back then. Like, when I'd be at home alone, I'd hear voices calling my name, and I'd think, like, oh, is my mom home? I don't know. you know,
that's scary.
It's like, you know, and then only in 2019, so obviously bearing in mind I'm like now an adult, then my mom admit that she was also with gifts and abilities. So she's
sensitive as well.
She used to have this gift. I mean, it's not the best one to have. Bless her soul. But she could tell when someone was about to die. So she said she used to hear a certain particular sound. That's not a normal sound that you can hear, like a certain knocking or something. I forget now. And she said that when she heard that sound, she knew in a matter of days someone around her would die. And it didn't need to be a loved one per se. She just knew. And so when she immigrated here and she was working in Oxford as a carer, she just knew when the time was coming. And almost like as a sick joke, she'd be like, I know when to start looking for a new job, you know?
That's really, I've never heard of that before, actually.
Yeah. So it's quite, I'm going to say freaky deaky.
Yeah, so she'd obviously had that happen before and then had it verified because the person had died. So for her to believe that, she must have seen it a few times.
Yeah, and then eventually she said, for example, I mean, this is a crazy example, but it was like, it confirmed or validated that this is real, is that when I started dating an ex of mine in 2017, she said to me, you know, whether you're going to believe this or not, but your father visited me last night and he told me some information about your partner. So you should stop seeing him. I'm not going to say on the podcast.
Okay.
But
so your father came to her in a dream, you mean?
Yeah. So I mean, dream or a vision or state. But she basically said that she was lying in bed and it was like literally he lifted the cover and then came next to her and started discussing with her. So I was like, I know this guy. This is like literally impossible. Like it's not possible. Anyway, so I just ignored it. We dated for like 3 years or so. So then, I don't know, just call it like a year down the line. She's like, I'm really sorry, but your dad's come back and he's still relaying the exact same message. You need to like get on this because this information would result you not being in a relationship. And I was like, oh, this is so weird. But, you know, like, should I go for it? Should I try? And then he came back from like a holistic healing course where he just looked like his vibration was on the next level. He looked like he was at peace with life, you know, sort of like a guru.
Your partner.
Yeah. Like nothing could bother him. And I was like, maybe this is the time we should ask this information.
Okay. So this involved you telling him something or asking him something. Okay.
And then I actually did. And then it was as if he saw a ghost. He was like, how would you know that? Like, how would you know that? And I was like, oh my God.
What? Oh, stop. I really want to know what this is.
I'll tell you on camera. It's like, it was just so shocking. And then I was like, because you see all the movies and I mean, it freaks me out because I don't want to know like if there's a poltergeist or a ghost or something coming. And then I think like, this is like real now, you know, starting to get real life experiences. And I've had some very interesting experiences that when I've done ayahuasca and plant medicines, it's not everyone's experience, but some of my experiences are I get taken back into my past and I get to almost be in a 3D third party viewer.
That sounds amazing.
Watching my experience.
If it's good experiences.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very enlightening experiences because obviously for whatever reason, the teacher is trying to show you, you know, you need to understand what happened here. So usually this could be as a result of a trauma, but then when you're in like the third party view, you're watching who you were with a lack of understanding, intelligence or emotional intelligence. And then equally, you're watching the person who inflicted the trauma or perceived to have inflicted the trauma. But then you start to get information about, oh, this is what happened. This is why they said it this way. You know, this is what they were going through. And then all of a sudden you start to go, oh, it wasn't actually how I thought it was.
Yeah, and how you experienced it. Yeah.
and then you start to go, okay, I must maybe forgive this person, not maybe, like, you know, then you start to develop compassion and you think, okay, no, I should forgive. And then you start to almost unwind these blockages, and then
so that's like a healing thing then.
Yeah, so it's quite cool. So then
it sounds it. And we can we always often misinterpret things because we always come at a situation from our own lives and experiences and what we're feeling, and emotions can lie to us and make us think things that aren't real. And especially I find when I understand why someone has done something or said something, definitely helps me to feel better. But forgiveness ultimately is about you. It's not about actually the person that's done something, is it? It's about freeing yourself.
Yeah.
And some people who can't forgive, they don't understand that. They think that to forgive someone is you letting them off the hook and saying that it's okay that they did the thing. But it's to free you.
Yes.
Personally.
I remember that saying, it was like, you need to accept the apology from that person that you'll never get.
Yeah.
I don't think I said it the right way, but basically they'll never apologize, but you need to perceive that they have, so you can let go.
You can move on. And you can heal. Yeah, it makes sense.
But it's a multi-layered cupcake, that one.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously depends on the trauma or whatever, but it does sound like you've had lots of paranormal experiences then.
Yeah.
To draw from. So did you start off from birth not believing then? Or because of your father, did you always believe in paranormal things and that there was something else?
Well, the thing is, I've always been open, this is like we were saying earlier, like it's a personality thing or a nature thing or, you know, incarnation thing, because it's part of my purpose is to work with this kind of stuff now. So I've always just naturally seen it. And when I watched movies, I mean, my brother and I used to watch movies that are like age 16, 18, like you shouldn't watch these horror movies or films or, you know. And whenever I watched them, I was like, I'm really scared because I believe this is true. And then everyone's like,
that makes it, that would make it much more terrifying.
Yeah, so now I've traumatized myself. And then I met a lot of spiritual people now, many years later, that say you should never watch those kind of films because actually you start to attract those kind of things into your...
Well, that's really scary as well, honestly. I don't know. Do you believe that, though?
Yes.
So do you try and avoid horror movies now?
Yes.
Because that's the fear. Because I didn't believe in that stuff, but then I would watch a horror movie about poltergeists or something. And even though I knew or what I thought I knew, after the movies, I mean, they're terrifying. And then I'd go out and then I'd be wondering that if I turned the light on, am I going to see a room full of blood? Or am I going to look in the mirror and see something behind me or my face change or something like this? Is there going to be someone with a knife around the corner just because I've watched the film at that moment? So you saying this is pretty scary because... But it's manifesting those things.
It is manifestation, it's planting seeds. But this is like, even like, and this will attest to how I knew I was more open about this when I was young, is that when people used to play those games like Ouija board, I will never ever touch a Ouija board in my life. Like that terrifies
Even
me.
If I don't believe, I still couldn't do that because it would get under. Have you ever seen a film called Candyman?
I think so. It's one in the mirrors.
Yeah, and
like we had the Bloody Mary.
I think the same kind of thing, isn't it?
Why would you do that? Like, why would you want to play with fire?
No,
I don't believe it. I'll do it. It's like,
but once you've said it, it's not just then that they can turn up. It's any time after that. Once you've said it, so that always stuck in my mind. So I would never do that. Just like I wouldn't do a Ouija board.
And this is the next thing, though, which is funny from movies, is that people think only when it's dark things happen. It's like there's no like, I'll come out when the sun comes down. It's like spirits can come 24/7, you know, depending on and now when I've worked with higher level healers, because I'm not there at all, who have like, I'm going to say like goggles or spectacles where they can see multi-dimensional layers within this. They say there's thousands of spirits like right here, right now, and you just think everyone's watching. Yeah,
that would induce paranoia, I would say. But do they? Does your friend believe that they also can see you then? Because maybe the spirits can only see certain dimensions or layers. Maybe they don't know that we're here either.
No, I think they can see, because from my understanding, it's about density of energy. So, between my legs. So obviously, the more higher level being you are, your energetic or what do you call it, etheric energy level is very like high vibration. And in order to see higher, you need to have that level of ability. But everyone can see down. So we're dense, condensed energy and matter. So everyone can see us. Because maybe they'll try to communicate, and they're like, you see like in the movies, they'll put the hand on you, but the hand just goes through and they can't see you. And they're like, why can't I not communicate with this person? And sometimes if it's an angry spirit that's like might have died, maybe suicide or like non-natural causes, or maybe was killed or murdered, they always try like, why aren't you hearing me? Why aren't you hearing me? And this is where you can start to feel like bad vibes in a house or wherever, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's just, anyway, it's just the subject. But I mean,
I love dimensions anyway.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating.
But when I heard that you went to university and studied this, I was like, what?
I know, it's a bit crazy. And everyone that I tell that to, I think they just kind of laugh. I clearly wasn't going to go into a job after that, but I only did it for the 1 year. So I studied psychology and criminology for the first few years. And then the final year, you choose which subject in psychology you want to go into. So for me, it was between forensic psychology and parapsychology. And I've always been interested in the paranormal. So I thought, I'll do that. I'm not wanting to use it for anything. I'm just really interested. And I'd read so many books and I just thought it'd be really fun to study it. So yeah, I did that. And it was really interesting.
It's like, what do you study? Like, what is the study of parapsychology? So if you had to get a job, what job would one get?
In parapsychology? Yeah. Teaching parapsychology. I don't know.
I'll tell you okay,
so yeah, I'll just be the teacher. We'll just continue in this circle. I don't know. I mean, I've read some books about people working for the government and working for the police department who have special abilities, for example.
I know one person actually
that works for one of the. Wow. So that's a thing, and that's not. I mean, it's not really spoken about, and we don't really know much about it. But these people are employed, and to work, along to try and help solve crimes and find things and remote viewing and things like that. So that's something I guess you could go into. I mean, you could be Ghostbusters, I suppose. I'm sure there's actual Ghostbusters in existence somewhere. Yeah. If you Google it, I'm sure you could find like an emergency service where you're having this problem in your house and you really need someone, like an exorcist or something. Yeah. It could be an exorcist, I suppose.
But would you say then, studying this, you would need to also have a predisposition with abilities of some sort or kind?
So, well, the funny thing is, I don't actually necessarily believe in the paranormal. When I say that, I'm very science-minded, and I've always been interested in psychology and how the brain works, how the mind works, and I think we're so complicated, and it fascinates me. So, me studying that, I was seeing a lot of it. It was from a psychology perspective. So it was talking about all the different subjects, and then going through studies that have been done on these specific subjects, and then thinking about reasons why things might be the case, why they might be happening, why you might be seeing a ghost, or why you have an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience. So yeah, my fascination was more of how we have these experiences, less that there's something out there creating something, and more that it's within us.
So what are some of the reasonings? I mean, that's quite interesting to hear from me. So if as an example, would they say that you might be suffering from, psychosis, schizophrenia, personality disorders of various kinds?
It depends what the thing is, what the phenomena is, or phenomenon, as to what it could be mentally. But for example, there's one thing where people if they haven't believed in God, for example, and they haven't been religious, and then suddenly something happens and they believe. I'm not talking about miracles, but there's a study that's been done on the brain using electrodes, and they've measured a certain part of the brain and found that they could induce a God experience in people. And so when whichever part is stimulated, people feel like they're experiencing God and things like that. And that's happened to people in real life without being tested. Lots of people have experienced things like this and become religious all of a sudden for whatever reason. And that study shows that stimulating certain parts of the brain can give you these amazing, massive experiences that we then interpret as something. So I think it's the same as if I've not tried myself, but trying it, lots of different drugs can have these effects as well. And I've spoken to people before that have had all different effects and thoughts and feelings after taking certain drugs and during the trips or whatever you want to call it. So drugs is definitely a thing that seems to be able to open your mind to feel things that you couldn't feel in our normal state of being. So things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can say, because I have tried different types of drugs as well as plant medicines. And I can just say one experience is when I was at a rave and I tried, what is it called? MDMA or ecstasy? I don't know what it is. A friend gave something to try. It was the first time I experienced euphoria. And it was a fascinating experience because I was like, I've never felt such bliss, such peace, such connection, such happiness, such unison or unity, feeling one with people. And I felt what I perceive to this day as unconditional love. Like my body felt at peace. There was the anxiety disappeared. It was just like, this is incredible. And for me, I was like, I have now received an understanding of what this ultimate higher power of happiness feels like. And then that was my lesson, because I never took it after, because I was like, the after effects were horrible. And I was like, what people do this? What they call the come down.
Well, I'm glad you had the good experience though first.
Yeah. But I think, again, because I always say that like universe intervened and it brought me this experience. And I was like, now I know what I need to work towards and how to find ways to naturally do that. So, I mean, that's been quite powerful. But when you come into plant medicines, where it's actually, yes, it's a drug, but we say it's a medicine because it'll have a lot of healing impact and effects.
And it's natural, I guess, as well. So
yeah, made from plants. But I mean, fundamentally, everything comes from plants, doesn't it? But that is a very powerful experience in itself. And I always use this analogy that our mind is like a hotel. And throughout our life, we'll go through all the different rooms, but we never quite understand where the penthouse is. And it's almost that plant medicines open up, and I always use the analogy as well, it's like it gives you another pair of glasses that helps you to see something more in detail, in depth, and experience something that's always been within you. You just didn't have the key to open it, and you almost needed a guide or a teacher.
I wish we could access all of our brain. Imagine what we could do.
Limitless.
I know, I love that film as well. So do I. I've been thinking about microdosing lately. Microdosing drugs. I watched a Netflix series on that. That was really interesting. But yeah, so I did have nitrous oxide once. I think that's just laughing gas.
Oh yeah.
But I had it in a gas canister at a festival. And even that opened my mind as well, because my perception completely changed. It was very, very short, like less than a minute, I think. But my perceptions changed, like how I was hearing things, how I was seeing things completely. And it just made me think that all the different drugs out there and the capability of the mind, obviously we've evolved to be the way that we are, to function and to get on and to survive and to keep going. And this is what works for us. But I really think that our brains have so much potential. When you hear about monks and people that can survive in freezing conditions for a really long time, or people that survive without breathing for a really long time as well. That's crazy to hear, but we're so powerful, and I wish we knew how to use it all. And I wish that I could come back in hundreds of years' time and see how we've evolved, if we do evolve more, like in our brains.
It's going to take over. We're just going to be wiped
and actually, we might regress, mightn't we? But I did my dissertation in parapsychology was on out-of-body experiences.
Yeah.
Because I was just fascinated by them. And I wished I could have them. I never really tried, but I interviewed lots of different people, including my lecturer. And some of them, and I think lots of people in the world, have these experiences after taking drugs. And that's what allows them to, whether they're having this experience completely within themselves and in their mind, or whether it's opening their minds up to actually be able to free their consciousness or whatever that is, to travel around the world. Either one of those could be true. And I think I could believe either one of those. But yeah, some people got it through drug experiences. Some people, I think, through meditation and things like that. And then I'm sure there were other ways. I can't remember the other ways. But it was so interesting hearing about the stories.
I'll tell you one of my teachers that I'm working with at the moment in Taoist practices, so it's like Chinese spirituality. He's in his like 80s now, I forget, but his partner, she's really young. She's like late 30s.
Wow.
But they are kindred spirits or soulmates or twin flames. I mean, I don't know what the interchangeable term, because there's always a new term that's coming out for like two souls that are destined to be with each other. But apparently, according to what they've said, is that when they both incarnated here, and obviously he's been here a lot longer than her, but then as soon as she chose to incarnate in this planet, they met through OBE, so out-of-body experiencing, and they call it the astral plane.
While they were having an out-of-body experience, they met.
Yeah. So basically, whether it's through, because he's obviously he's a master in his practice, so he teaches a lot of deep spiritual connections, and then you can literally. And it's through conscious practice, so you know what you're doing rather than an event just happening.
Setting it, yeah.
Which is something I'm trying to master, and all the work I'm doing, and even just being.
It would be amazing.
Daily habit, just like consciously know what you're doing. You're eating, you're sitting, you're meditating, you're talking, you're just aware, because we do so many things on autopilot. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't remember the other parts of the story, like how did it happen, if they were in bed individually, and then obviously decided to astral travel, or if it was through meditation or practice where he went out of body. But basically, they met up in the astral plane, and they're like, oh, where did you choose to incarnate right now? And she's like, oh, I'm in here, somewhere. She's from Portugal originally. He's from the UK originally. And they're like, all right, you should come over to the UK now, and let's meet up and continue our...
What? Just mad. This baffles my brain.
But this is the point. It's like I almost feel like Alice in Wonderland, where I'm attracting all of these incredible experiences and people. And
I would need to talk to these people and find out more about this.
Can you tell me more? Maybe I should write a book about this.
I love reading. I would read them. Definitely read them.
So I want to write a book where it's like I can't make this shit up.
Star, do you write things down? That experiences? Good.
Oh,
yeah, I used to when I was younger.
I film myself. I'm just like, because it's more animated. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, you definitely should, because you'd love to watch it back and read it back as well, and then you'd realize the amount, because you might not realize just how many you have.
Yeah.
Although it sounds like you have quite a few.
Yeah, but I forget a lot, because it's only like conversation exchange that like organically popped up, and I'm like, in the moment I'm like, I should write this down now before I forget it, that kind of thing.
I'm fascinated by dreams as well, and what you were saying reminded me of that, because out-of-body experiences, when I was a child, I had a dream that I was in a certain place, and I remember it ever since, because it felt so real. I felt, even as a child, I felt like I'd actually gone to this place. And it was a sunny place. It was daytime, wherever it was. It wasn't England, because I was asleep at night. It definitely wasn't England. But I was asleep at night time, I think. And I just remember thinking how real that was. And it convinced me that it was real and that I'd traveled in my sleep. So I wonder if it is real, if we'd be able to do it like that. And just in basically showing that when you're in altered states of consciousness, that's when you can do things that we don't understand or we can't do normally because we don't know how.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that we can't.
Well, that's where I'm coming to.
I love dreams anyway.
I think this field of work is such a higher level of intelligence that we don't know yet how to articulate it, define it, because I think it's like quantum physics. It's just a very
It's also fascinating.
Yes.
But isn't it funny that you get judged harshly for being interested in something like this when actually it does take a different kind of way of thinking to be able to, even if you don't believe in it, to just play with those kinds of thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I feel like part of my work when I work with people is to just open up the mind a bit. Like, it could sound so crazy, it could sound so daft, it could be really weird, but maybe it could be true. Because people go, no, it's not true. I'm like, okay, have you done your research? Do you know about it? Have you explored the ends of the earth?
And I think generally when people have those very fixed opinions, they don't. They just hear something, they think, oh, that sounds crazy. I didn't learn about that in school, science. And then they just, batter it down.
Yeah. But the thing is, things change. So people almost think like because I work in medical work, like Western science, that what is written in the books, this is definitive, this is it, this is law. But it's not, because science changes all the time. Because now with what's it called, because you brought it up in my mind, is with Wim Hof, like challenging to do ice cold baths and holding your breath for a really long time, and then you can actually exert more output. So there's this exercise that you have to like you do just like normal push-ups within a minute, and people can get away with like just say for 10, 15 push-ups, maybe more if you're really fit. And then you do this exercise where you hold your breath for as long as possible for a multiple period of times, and then you hold your breath and then do the push-ups again, and you like almost double your output. It's really crazy because I've done
these people that
people, just normal people. And basically
that's mad because you've not got oxygen going around either. That doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. It just doesn't make sense, but it makes sense. But you can try this at home and you can do it yourself, and then as soon as you start seeing differences, you're like, maybe I should start thinking differently. But Wim Hof, who I would say is classed as a very alternative person, is actually, through his work and proven his work, has made Western science have to rewrite understanding about the immune system. And it just shows you things are not fixed. Like,
they're not. We're learning all the time, and the mind is so connected to the body. So if you think, like, you can raise your heart rate just by thinking about it, or you know that if you think of a certain thing, your heart will increase or decrease by your breathing. The mental is so connected to the physical, but we don't ever talk about that really.
The mind body connection.
And stress, and and one of my favorite books in the last say 10 years that I've read is a science book, and it's called The Intention Experiment. And it's actually written by a journalist, I think, and she's interviewing lots of different people and going through studies that have been done, scientific studies, paranormal psychology studies, all about the subject of changing the physical world with the power of our minds. I think you'd find this book interesting as well, because there's lots of different sections, and there's healing section, there's just so many different ones, and mass prayer section as well, even. But it starts with this person is doing experiments on plants, and he's attached electrodes to the plants, and he's measuring responses to things, and he's measuring stress responses, I think. And so he just had this thought at one point, what would happen if I set fire to this plant over here? And then the electrodes went crazy. But he just thought it, and then obviously thought, that's very strange. That's not supposed to happen. Could it have been because of what I was thinking? So then he did it again and had the same thought, but had the actual intention of doing it, because there's a difference. And the same thing happened. So the beginning of the book starts with this being turned into an actual experiment, and then it moves on to shrimp and small things and food, and then it moves on to people, and it's just fascinating. And it changed I'd say it changed my way of thinking completely. And my father is very skeptical. He's very science-minded. He's not religious. He doesn't believe in any of that stuff. He read the book and he couldn't believe what it was saying. And then he went and verified the sources and the experiments and things. And I'd say that hopefully it's changed his way of thinking as well.
Yeah, even subtly.
Opened his mind.
100%, I think. But I think, because I think about that as well. Like, is this why people pray before they eat food? Because across all religions, I was really fortunate when I was in high school, in second year of high school, in religious education, our teacher, who used to be the head principal, took us to all different places of worship. And you got to see how they eat, how they behave, what their schools of thought are. And it was really enlightening. And like at the time, you're just a child, you're like, why am I here? I want to go home, I want to play. But now I'm just like, this is like quite a rare experience to have had. You know, like for example, eating. The monks would not talk whilst eating. And they want you to be so in tune with your food. And then I think like, okay, but what if you want someone to pass you the rice? And then literally they would just, whether, you know, the way I experienced it was like they would just beam intention. And then the other monk would look up and he'd be like, there you go. And this is so crazy. And meanwhile I'm like, oh, move forward.
I've done tests like that in my own head when I was younger, thinking that people could read my mind. But didn't know. Yeah, I just remember being on a firefighting course, and I kept on thinking, I thought this thing, and then this person did it, the firefighter in front of me, and then I was like, wait a moment, did he do it because I thought it? So then I started experimenting and thinking different things, and it kept doing things that I was thinking. Just reminded me of that.
Yeah, cool. But there must be something, because I think to myself, if you're in company with someone that you really don't like, and then you almost go into that negative, like, oh God, maybe not God, but you know, all of a sudden, I've always got this impression, then you start to emit bad vibes.
You get what you give and what you put out and what you receive.
And then I start to think, even if you are like, maybe for example, if you don't like someone or you don't like the situation you're in, you almost pollute it more with your thoughts.
That's kind of scary as well.
Intention. It's like, again, back to this is what I'm trying to master in my life is conscious behavior, conscious thinking, conscious eating, conscious thinking, conscious speaking, everything. You know, like stupid example, brushing your teeth. You're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Or like sometimes you don't know how you drove home. You just know you got home.
That scares me as well. I know. And sometimes. Was I paying attention?
And I think to myself, could I have blocked an accident? Like, would I? Because I remember this one time when I was in auditing, I had to drive in South Africa. I had to drive to this client every day. And it was the first time I had to drive for like 4 hours a day, which obviously is something you need to adjust to. So going from like 10, 20 minutes to that with doing an intensive day, like managing a big team, managing clients, I was literally falling asleep at the wheel and my brain was going, if you continue to close your eyes, you're going to die. And I was like, I know.
I don't care.
I was like, I don't mind. And I thought, this is so weird. Like, where's my fight or flight now? You know,
you were obviously comfortable in that car. I've had an experience like that as well. It's scary.
I don't think I'm afraid to die, and this comes back. No, but in general speaking, like,
I mean, I'd say that's a good thing, really, as long as you still have the instinct to live.
Yeah. No, but,
and the want to live.
I need to rephrase that. Maybe just go back and like
relax.
I think because this comes from a spiritual belief system that reincarnation. Yeah. So I think I'm going to either continue into another life as a human, or I might go up, I might go down. Depends.
Are you religious as well, or not?
You see, this is the thing.
Or just spiritual?
I don't know what I am. I don't think I'm anything. Right.
But you believe in something. You believe you will come back somehow, some way, somewhere.
Well, I've got different theories, and these are personal theories I've come up with, is that I feel like your soul, this, higher energy, I think of Dragon Ball Z. There's this program where it's like
Yeah, I've heard of it.
little ball of energy and light. So this is your soul. And I feel like it gets broken down into like a puzzle. And every puzzle piece is a life. You come in, you choose a certain lesson, you choose a certain path, you choose a certain pattern. And when you accomplish said mission, that's when you die. And that's why I think you get those freakish stories where someone's like 20, perfect health, never smoked, never drank, never done drugs, and then boom, will just drop down of a heart attack because my brain goes, okay, they've learned their lesson, achieved, moved on.
Scary. I've met someone who believed the same thing. She was a Reiki healer.
Yeah.
Yeah, she told me about that, and I thought that was really interesting as well, that idea.
Yeah.
So then why would people live to old age and then die of old age? What kind of lessons do you think they're learning right at the end?
Well, I think
maybe to let go of something.
Maybe I don't actually think so. It could be. I think this just comes with infinite possibility. But my thought process goes to immediately when you said that was they need to teach the grandchildren lessons, or
their
children, or they need to do something, because I think that's the complexity.
It's a nice idea, though.
Higher intelligence is that there's so many roles being played multiple times. So what we're doing as an exchange is happening, but through us meeting is creating a different thing.
The butterfly effect, like we spoke about.
Yeah. So
it's crazy to think.
It's almost like you can make yourself crazy. I'm a psychologist. You can make yourself crazy by going deep into these rabbit holes. But that's where I, again, just put it down to this is such a higher level of intelligence that human mind can't conceive. And maybe we don't need to, and that's maybe a point as well. I've read in research that, the average person uses only like 3-4% of their brain, whereas like the most, the most famous geniuses, is that what it's called?
I think so.
Geniuses. It sounds weird.
We'll say geniuses.
Smart people. They've tested their brain, and their capacity usage is like 8-9%.
They're still really small.
Yeah, which is nothing, right?
Yeah, I've heard this as well.
But the thing is, tests are not being done on the gurus, the monks, the people who are like, really profound.
Very controlled as well, controlling of their emotions and things, physical experiences.
Not eating for weeks on end, or, not needing to sleep.
Yeah.
Meditate.
I think it's good to test the geniuses, also to test people who are experts in certain fields to see. I'd like to see the differences in their brains to someone who doesn't do anything or doesn't have things like that. But yeah, monks as well. I think there would be I definitely think there'd be a big difference, because also when you train your brain, every time you train your brain, you make new neural pathways, and the implication with that is that you're going to be using more of it. And I think also people who maybe have brain damage or epilepsy or something like that, or they've had part of their brain cut off, that would be strokes. That would be really interesting to see how theirs are different as well, because they would have to relearn, because we think that research shows we think that certain parts of what we do is just fixed in certain parts of our brain. So if you get rid of that or it dies, then you lose that ability, like for example to speak or something. But it's coming out now that the brain, the other side of the brain, can learn these things maybe in different ways, but that's amazing as well.
It's really cool. So the word I understand, it's
plasticity. Yes.
Today. Talk brief. But this is the thing. So I find now with the way life is going is that we are being dumbed down with technology. Like, I was just saying this yesterday to someone, is that I don't even know anyone's number anymore. When I was younger, you have to remember all the numbers to call. Everything is automated. Like, as soon as I log on to some app, it automatically logs me in with my fingerprint.
Use it or you lose it.
And now with AI, that's just sort of just this chat app that's been launched, and there's all new softwares of AI that can basically do tasks for you. It's like you're basically being rendered to not use your brain anymore.
I had this thought just earlier when you were talking about AI taking over and talking about what it might look like in the future. Maybe we'll actually go down and not use as much.
I think so. I do completely believe
That's scary,
that.
actually.
And then, I mean, this is another conspiracy theory I have, but I think the thing is,
everyone loves a conspiracy.
is I think there are people who are, you know, whether you want to say psychic, gifted, that can see so far into the future. And they see a reality and a truth that if they had to say it to the world today, we'd be like, you're mad. This is not true. You should go into a mental health home. Like,
This is how it's been in the past as well.
So I've come up with a theory that you've got to plant the seeds. And I think what people have done is they plant the seeds through best medium, which is movies. Because movies, you just go in your brain like, this isn't real, I'll watch it. But you're receiving filtered
messages,
information. And then I think to myself, like, movies where I think of, I don't know if you might have seen this one, like Minority Report, Equilibrium.
I love sci-fi, it's my favorite. Yeah. So I've seen all the sci-fi ones. Equilibrium,
Matrix as well.
That's my favorite.
I love these movies because they challenge your mind. And then I think this is like, for me, I mean, especially with the COVID vaccine, like, I think Minority Report, like, we're being jabbed with something and it's just making people think less because you're not challenging what am I putting in, why is this going inside me. We're not questioning, we're just doing. Society says do and people just do, people don't think. And the thing is, then a lot of other people go, oh well, there's nothing we can do about it because everyone says we have to do it. But the reality is, if everyone said no, then you would do it. Yeah. But
this is definitely how it works, isn't it?
But people are losing this is the thing, is I feel like society or the capitalist or the higher powers that be are just trying to make us not think anymore and become, you know, in psychology, you'll call like the herd effect or the sheep effect, where you just, one person does it, so you do it and you don't go, why? So have you, you might have, if you've studied psychology, I've studied fragments of it, but they've done this experiment where someone will just be in the middle of the street and will just stop and stand and stare up. And all of a sudden, another person would stop, stand, and stare at. And then
I can imagine this happening.
End of the day, they've got this whole line of people going like, "What are you looking for? Like, what are you looking for?" Like, I don't know. I'm just looking at. There's something there, and it's like, no, there's nothing there. You got to think for yourself, and then you'll probably get, you know, obviously there's always that one in the experiment that will say, no, actually, what are they doing? They're wasting time. You know?
Yeah. I've not heard of it, but I can I can imagine it. I think I'm about to have a coughing attack. But what I was thinking of was when you're saying that people losing their autonomy and their own will, and it's a scary prospect. And I think you could definitely be right and be onto something. Lots of people that I've met have been very against government and things like that and authority. Because of that reason, I remember having lots of chats with my ex during the pandemic about just this, about it's just, this is the first step. They ask you to do this, then they make it mandatory. And that's one thing. And they punish you if you can't. For example, people being told they couldn't work anymore for the NHS if they didn't have the vaccine. And then they took it away. But then, of course, lots of people then had it who didn't want to have it. And that's just one thing. And then what's the next thing? And then what's the next level of control? And he was very conscious of that and of that escalating. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other topic anyway, and a massive topic. But I see what you mean. It's scary.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is now, it's seeming only like sort of about now. I just shared something on my Instagram this morning, like a congresswoman mandatorily had to have the jabs, and now she said that she's suffering from asthma, tremors in her left hand, and some other condition, and she's like, heart palpitations, and she just said, and I believe now as a result of this, I'm going to have this for life because no doctor can explain why.
I'm guessing she's blaming that on the injection.
Yeah.
Oh, that's scary too. Yeah. I mean, it's scary to also put that out there because then other people will start thinking that.
I forgot now if it was Twitter or Facebook, but she had representatives from that social media platform, and she said to them, so are you a doctor? And the woman was like, no, I don't have any medical background. And she said, so where and why on earth do you think you had the authority to censor information from people who've been to Harvard, doctors that were saying that the jab shouldn't have been prescribed because it has all of these complications, and they censored it.
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
No, but basically, no, it's because I guess I work in the alternative world, so it's quite a big thing. But it's starting now. The realities and complications of the outcome of the vaccines is now starting to come out, and now people are starting to speak out about it. And now the social media platforms can't censor it anymore because they block. Like when I used to share stuff about, vaccine, and not even like really bad things, like I would say putting it down, but like you've violated a community guideline. If you post something else like this, your account's going to get blocked or deleted, and you're like, I don't really think I said, because there was one thing I shared, I think it was like 2 years ago, about a funeral director saying that the spike of deaths and seeing the kind of cause of deaths, and he said this was all COVID related, so I shared this thing, and then basically I nearly lost my YouTube account.
Why?
Because they just don't want you to make sort of the negative connotations or that.
Oh, to do with the vaccine, or that's massive subject and very controversial. Definitely.
We'll see with time as well that comes up with it, but
but there's we take vaccines all the time for different things, and no one talks about conspiracies with those, but I suppose they've been studied longer and they've been around longer, so this was all very fast, wasn't it? But
because they said they had to test the vaccine for about 2 years before they can launch a vaccine. This wasn't, so they
I think that's what scared most people. But then ultimately there was a certain person who said a certain thing and who was very high up in power, and because he made this statement, a lot of people didn't get the vaccine, and then a hell of a lot of people died. So there's lots of different sides to this and angles, and it's just I don't know what's right and what's wrong, honestly, but scary.
But if we come back to
paranormal, it's easy to get sidetracked, isn't it?
So if you're someone who's been raised scientifically minded, and then now you've studied this
parapsychology,
what would you say do you follow religion, a specific religion, or would you say
no, I'm not religious?
Have you become more open to spiritual work, especially now that you've met a lot of people that have almost challenged your mindset, that kind of thing?
So I've always been open-minded and fascinated with the brain and the mind. I've always thought that I was spiritual in a way, but I couldn't really say why I felt that. But I think that's just because I was interested in, I call it alternative science, just interested in the science that we don't learn in school and we don't talk about, and quantum mechanics and all of that. It hasn't made me more, I don't think it's really changed how I already felt about it. And if someone asked me yesterday, I think, if I believed in paranormal activity, basically in the paranormal, and I said I don't, but I do. I think it depends, for me, it depends on what we're talking about. So I believe that everything, there's a reason for everything. There's a reason why this happened, why that happens. There's an explanation for everything. I don't believe in magic. And because I'm not religious, I can't believe that that it's come from someone else. But I do still think that some paranormal type things, the paranormal activities, can be created by ourselves or by other people, and that can explain what it is, where someone might interpret it as magic or paranormal or religious experience. I would just say maybe it is the same experience that you're having, but it's come from this thing. That was a really long-winded explanation, but I know what I'm talking about. But it really just depends on what we're talking about. So if you were to say about ghosts, for example, because we've been talking about spirits, I've not had those experiences myself. I've not seen those things or felt those things. So I'm coming very much from that perspective. And people generally, if people haven't had those, I think they probably tend to not believe that they exist. But I can't discount all of the people that have had these experiences. There's a reason why all these people have had this experience. So then I look into, or I think about, and I studied where they could have come from, and all the different things like we were talking about earlier, whether it's drugs or psychosis or other things. But at the same time, I also have read this book, The Intention Experiment, and I know that there's been so many scientific experiments on the power of the mind to affect the physical realm. So then that comes into it when I think about lots of different paranormal things, because I think, well, for example, if you're thinking of a poltergeist, which most people would say is a spirit or an angry spirit or something, and then I'd be thinking about all the studies that have been done on paranormal activity and poltergeist activity around certain areas or in certain rooms, people's houses, and they've studied I think a lot of the time there's been adolescent children around, and so they've studied those children and things like that. And yeah, it's really interesting. But I just come at it from a very sciencey perspective, and it doesn't mean that I don't believe in it, but it just means that I don't believe it is necessarily what other people might think it is. But with out-of-body experiences, for example, that could literally be anything. There's so many different things. Like I said, it could be that we are literally leaving our bodies, our consciousness or our soul, as you said, could be leaving our bodies and traveling around the universe, or it could be that we're having this experience in our minds. So I'm open to either of those possibilities with that specific thing.
Yeah, I think it's all the answers, isn't it? Because it's again, you're playing in a field of multiple level of things that it could be one thing, could be all things.
Could be nothing. We could be just making it up. But so like, and another thing that I remember reading about, and when we're talking about what you could do with this as a job, is I read about a book all about remote viewing, if you've heard of that.
Yeah, I have a friend who's just started studying it at the moment, which is quite interesting.
That was interesting because the book was written by someone who was employed by, I think it was the government, to be a remote viewer, because he had these abilities, and he went to a place where he studied it as well, and he did lots of experiments and practiced and things like that, and then was employed by government agencies to try and locate things, basically to locate bombs or to locate people that have been kidnapped, or to locate sites of where things, weapons were kept and things like that. And that was really interesting to read as well. So you can't, there's so many of these different things out there, and I think we just call things paranormal when we don't understand them.
Give it like a label to it.
And because we don't understand it yet, and it hasn't been widely studied, it's not in the textbooks, we can't learn about it in school, and so we call it that. And it's just, you'll get those people who just ignore all of it and think that everyone's crazy who talks about it and believes in it, and then you'll get the people who think about it and try to understand it and where it might come from. So that's the remote viewing thing was interesting. There was something else I was going to bring up. What was it? I'll remember it in a minute.
I mean, there's this one lady I know who is a psychic. I mean, and she's been very accurate with people that have gone to her. Like, in this sense, she will tell in the future you're going to meet someone. She'll tell you their name, their job, how they're going to look like.
I would love that. Like practical magic. Where she writes the letter and then meets the man of her dreams.
She basically, she said I went to a meeting with her, and she, with my partner now, said that you'll meet him in October. Because I was always like, where is love? Where is love? And she's like, just be patient, it's coming in October, and you'll meet him in these kind of circumstances. And it ended up happening. So then I'm like,
oh, that's funny.
That's crazy.
I would love that.
And she has
I love hearing about things like that.
And she also has that newspaper clipping in her bathroom, where it's basically her neighbor came one day just to like do something neighborly, and she was like, you need to go buy the lotto. And then he bought the lotto ticket, and he won the lotto.
What?
But
wow, this woman has powers.
Yeah, she lives in Kent, so it's not that far. But basically that's
good for business too. very good at business.
She apparently does like 6,000 readings a month. It's like she's like busy, but she doesn't mind to make money from her gift, which is quite for me. It's like psychologically, I was like, that's quite interesting. She's like been born with a talent, and she doesn't want to monetize it because if you're a spiritual person, money and spirituality should like not mix together. But so she does work with aesthetics, which is quite interesting. But she's I think in her 60s now, maybe late 60s, maybe early 60s. Just in case she watches it.
We're going to put some links down there of names and.
She at some part in her journey, she started doing I don't know what you call it, basically helping the police with cases of like 20, 30 years that haven't been solved. And then I watched a YouTube video of her before I met her. And basically, she was in this taxi being driven in this.
I've heard about that as well.
Middle of nowhere kind of home. And she's like, oh, I can feel very bad things. And basically, it turned out there was this daughter that went missing, and it made no sense because her handbag was still there. Like, you know, all of the evidence that shows that, like, she didn't leave, like, she just disappeared. But basically, this practitioner said that it was her jealous boyfriend thinking that she had cheated on him or something, and then he took her down to the river and he basically killed her and threw her in the river.
And did they find a body or any evidence?
They wouldn't have found the body because it's
river,
30 years later. I mean, I don't know, that might have been eaten by the fish or I don't know, something gross.
Easier if it's buried. You can find some bones.
You know.
But yeah, I've heard of this before. People and the police using people like this. I don't know what they're called either.
Thanks to Jess Dahmer, I know you should put it in some acid. Like,
that was a fun series to watch.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I think I myself wasn't very open to this stuff, but I've had experiences, and then my brain has first, you know, because I think I'm mostly very scientific minded, which is what people don't think about me. People are like, oh, you're airy fairy and creative. I'm like, no, like I like to study things. I'm an analytical person. I've studied accounting, but it's almost like I've tapped into both hemispheres of my brain, spheres of my brain, and I think
which can only be a good thing.
Yeah, and I think the idea is you need to oscillate between both of them and try. And I think this is what the gurus and the monks have achieved, is the harmonization of both, where they use both the left and right brain simultaneously. And I think we're always switching. And I think that's what's the interesting part of the psychology, because when something happens, it's like, did this happen? Is there a scientific way to explain that it's happened? Or could it literally be something paranormal? You know, and I get people all the time going like, oh, this happened. There's a ghost in my house. And I'm like, no, it's just a draft. Like, sorry, like, I don't mean to post about this. You know,
I love watching the Ghost Hunter series. They're so fun. But at the same time, doesn't mean I believe it, but they're still fun though, aren't they? But so many people do think that they've seen ghosts and do see things. And I remember now what I was going to bring up. You can't just, for people that don't believe in the paranormal, which is their prerogative, you can't just say that thousands of people are lying. That's not it's not a fair statement to make. So for example, I'm also really fascinated in time. I love all sci-fi stuff basically, but time, I find it amazing, and our perception of it and how it changes, and with our perceptions as well. And what it actually is. And I read a book called Time Storms, and I'm definitely buying that book and I'm reading it again. I need to get my hands on it. But it's full of stories from all different people around the world, of their experiences with what they call time storms, which is, for example, where someone is driving down a road and then something happens with their car, it malfunctions or something, so they'll stop and get out, and then they'll go wandering, and then they'll lose time, and they'll come back. Something may happen or not. They'll come back to their car, go home, and they'll realize that hours have gone by, or even days. And the book talks all about these. It's the first half of it is full of just accounts from so many different people saying pretty much the same thing. And I'm pretty sure that most of the people won't have heard of time storms or these kinds of experiences before, because I hadn't heard of it before I read this book. So I don't think that they would have heard that, taken that information, and then had an experience that way, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that's
it's
just
UFOs, isn't it? Like
in
UFO sightings. There'll be people all around the world. All in. It wasn't a book I read. It was, I think, an article or research paper. But basically, people all around the world have claimed to have been abducted by aliens, and will obviously relay the kind of experience they had. How they, like, the most common one they say is like how they've been probed, or things taken, or blood and tested, and basically assessed. And then people go, that's a figment of your imagination, or deem them to have some mental health issue.
Yeah.
But then when you have literally people all around the world who have never met each other, different cultural upbringing, different exposure completely, yet relaying the exact same type of accounts, then you have to start thinking,
maybe there's something to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We won't know, at least for the next kind of while anyway, but it's just fascinating to know that there's, something more to just waking up every day and just going to.
Yeah, and it's a very comforting thought as well. Someone in my family actually had an experience with UFOs like that. So that was really interesting to read. However, he did go into a mental hospital for a while. So it's very intertwined, I think it can be. But this reminds me also of near-death experiences, because so many people, and I've read a lot about this and watched things about it, and so many people have similar things and experienced similar things. And we don't know if maybe that is a coping mechanism when someone is dying or under anesthetic or something, or if it's actually there is something else and they're seeing that and they're on a different plane or something. It's just fascinating. I probably said that word about 50 times during this conversation, but it is.
I mean, I think I had an ND last year, not last year, 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. I woke up one morning urgently needing to pee. Urgently, like I was like, I'm about to piss myself, looks. Sorry, my language. But then I was in an Airbnb, and then I had to like run up this we were like in I don't know, like a hut kind of tree house kind of thing.
That sounds fun.
Which was attached to a normal house. And then I had to like run up this house. I ran up these little stairs to go into the toilet. And then as I sat down, I was like, whoa, like I can feel something's wrong. Like, and then I was like, I know, because obviously from the work I do, I was like, I know I'm about to faint. And then literally I went blind and deaf. So then I literally grabbed the door handle to like fall to my knees.
So scary.
It was terrifying, obviously, because you're like, what the hell?
And you were in a toilet somewhere in an Airbnb.
Well, this is the beauty it was in East London, which turned out we were right next door to a hospital, literally East London Hospital, less than Queen's Mary Hospital, I think it was called, less than 5 minutes drive away. So again, interesting way of how a universal intervention happened. But I basically got to the floor, shouted for my friend, and then I woke up in the arms of my friend, and I was like clammy, sweaty. I could feel like just almost like a zombie. But apparently I'd been unconscious for over 2 minutes, which in terms is like oxygen stops going to the brain damage can happen.
Well, so you stopped breathing for 2 minutes?
Yeah, I completely was unconscious, like literally. So this is what I was related to.
Yeah.
And then
when you faint, you normally keep breathing, as far as I understand.
Basically, I looked like I died. So I was like, okay. But when I came back, like I could just, because it's a weird thing that I experienced, but I felt like I was pale. I felt like I looked not okay. And he said my face was blue, my lips were blue. And then he said to me, are you okay? Are you okay? Like, how are you doing? What's happening? And I was trying to talk, but I couldn't. So I was like really struggling. And then I said, and then he said, okay. Then he tried switching his language to yes or no questions. And then I could just faintly nod yes or no. And then ironically as well, that week he was learning about how women have strokes or heart failure or anything like that. And knows how to like look after them. And he just swooped me and took me to the hospital.
So is this a medic?
He's not a medic, no.
Oh, this was your friend?
My friend, yeah.
Oh.
But his partner taught him that week about how to manage people. And it turned out I had...
That's good timing.
A TIA, which is a transient ischemic, which is like a stroke, basically.
Yeah.
But an anomaly to the hospital, because they were like, you're
That's
fit,
young. Yeah.
And then for a few weeks, so I was paralyzed on the left side of my body. I couldn't function. Like an example with the piano, like I tried like 2 days later to go to the piano, and I was like, I just can't. I would pick up a knife and fork, because you still think you can do as you can normally do. The knife and fork would just fall out my hand.
That's awful.
Went to the
Awful
chiro.
experience.
Yeah, went to chiro, and he's like, something like lopsided on your face. Anyway, weeks later, like, you wouldn't even know. There's occasions where I'll slur.
Lucky.
But then I felt different since I came back. So I've put it down to, I had an NDE. I went and had a spiritual upgrade, and I've come back. And ever since that event has happened, my life has just changed.
When was that? 3 years ago, did you say?
2 years ago, 6th of June, 2020.
So did you have
21 for a year.
do you remember anything from when you were out? Or when you say near-death experience, you mean the actual experience of nearly dying?
No. So this is like, I know a lot of accounts people have a lot of experiences that they can see things, they'll go places, they'll meet with loved ones.
Accounts people, did you say?
No, no.
Accounts of people. Finance.
I didn't have that intermediary experience, but what I can say is, as a person, I felt different. I felt like,
but you can't put your finger on it.
Yeah, just more mature. I was like, there's something new, shift in focus that's happening.
But a positive thing?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's
I said
good
to my friend, I was like, from this day, everything has changed. And it's just like, now how my life has unfolded, like my company changed, my type of direction has changed, where I lived has changed. Then I started to manifest the relationship that I've wanted. And it's just like, boom, 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 everything's falling.
That's so positive.
Yeah.
From a horrible experience.
Yeah, so it's like I almost had to die.
Yeah.
But, based on what the doctors relayed, is that I should have been brain damaged.
Yeah.
I should have probably died. Why? What brought it on? No idea.
Yeah.
And
so they don't, that's scary. Yeah.
So obviously for the last year and a bit, I've been going.
But you woke up first. If you hadn't have woken up first to need the toilet, you might have died in your sleep. That's terrifying.
Yeah. And, I'm grateful to not have this experience. Like, I lived to tell the tale. But it was just like,
so your body told you that you needed to wake up.
Yeah.
First.
Which is,
and then you were able to call your friend. Yeah, and that's horrible to think about. Sorry.
So again,
but what positive outcome?
Yes,
steer it back that way.
Then I'm like, well, could that be classed as an ND? I think so.
Yeah, not in the traditional sense of you saw things or heard things while you were having it, but it definitely was a near-death experience, absolutely.
So I don't know, but yeah.
And it's changed your life for the better.
Yeah, which I think NDs usually do. So I think from what I've read is a lot of people have them, and then either they're now with spirit or they have like psychic abilities.
Yeah, beliefs that they didn't have before.
And which you're going back to like now, or religious, like so I don't know, but it's just a fascinating. I feel like I could chat to you forever.
I know.
I'm so sorry.
No, I could chat about all these different things.
I guess maybe we can come to it. I don't know how to get
a conclusion. Is there a conclusion? This is just more of an open conversation, isn't it? It depends if there was a question. Was there a question?
You know what that made me think of? There was an exam that someone wrote, and it was a psychology exam, and the question was, or the paper was, is this a question? And the person who got asked, right?
When they had to write a paper on that.
Yeah. So obviously people going like, well, is this a question? Going into all the psychology behind it.
Very strange.
And apparently the person who got full marks, that like wrote in 5 minutes and left, was like, yes, if this is an answer. And that has stuck with me for life. So when you said, is this a question? Is there a question? I'm like, is there an answer?
There will be if there's a question. But yeah, unfortunately not in philosophy. I did study philosophy as well now, and it was just open.
New can of worms.
There were no answers.
Yeah. It's just deep levels of thought that you'll never have an answer to. Yeah. And maybe you might when you die. I don't know. I always think that if you die, maybe you're going to get like, bam, 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 bam. You're like, all
the answers. Oh, and that would be amazing, wouldn't it? I think death could be exciting if you thought of it the right way, if you framed it the right way. and you believed certain things, it could definitely be exciting. But yeah, paranormal, I think we're going to get lots of answers in the years to come on lots of different paranormal subjects and explanations. And maybe that won't be nice for a lot of people who had certain beliefs, but maybe I think ultimately it will help us, and it will make more people open-minded as well.
Like a shift in focus almost, or belief system, and or who knows. And that's the exciting part about it, is stay tuned, that kind of thing.
It's not a negative thing at the end of the day. It's things that it keeps us curious and keeps us wanting to move forward and to learn things, and that's really important. Anyway, midlife.
Yeah.
Life lessons.
Life lessons. Okay. I'm going to try. We'll wind down for today, but thank you. I'll probably get you back on again and we'll talk about some more about it, or maybe we might read some more books or research and want to just discuss it more.
More specific.
Yeah.
Specific subjects. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for sharing that. I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is actually a legitimate thing to study at uni. And
most people don't realize it does exist.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to get you on here, is obviously just to say like, wow, this does exist, encourage people, just broaden your mind.
Yeah.
Not saying you have to believe, but just listen to something different and go, huh, that's interesting, or that's a load of hogwash,
but it can open avenues, like you said earlier with the butterfly effect. You never know when you start looking into things what might come of it. And the funny thing was, I was watching a series about the paranormal just recently on Netflix.
The Lockwood and Co. No
not that one. And I kept on seeing this speaker on it, and I recognized him, and then I saw when it said his name, it said lecturer at Northampton University, and I was like, that was my lecturer, parapsychology. No wonder I recognized him. So it's funny we're having this chat now.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, cool. Well, thank you, lovely.
You're welcome. Good chat.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you. It's been 1.5 hours, which is crazy, no?
How do you know?
I got my timer there.
Almost, I can't see that far.
Yeah, glasses, darling, glasses.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much, and we'll definitely stay tuned, and it's exciting, and we'll see what comes of it. And maybe some people might ask some questions, maybe. I'll ask you privately as well, then maybe I can relay some information. But I just think this was just an enlightening subject. And maybe might encourage people, if they also have to go and either study forensic psychology, or there might be another subject, or even most importantly, a real avenue, or deemed society real avenue that people with abilities could go into a field of work that's recognized.
Yeah,
because I don't think the work that people doing, like if you got a psychic or a tarot card reader or energy worker, you'll be like, but this has some sense of credibility attached to it, which I think
if you
helps
want to go into something as a vocation. If you've done something like that, you'll definitely be probably listened to more, or people will respect you a bit more.
You're really good at this.
How it works.
Just got a natural knack for it. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna get talking again. I'm gonna shut up now. Okay, cool. Thank you. Bye.